And let's give you one of the questions which we prepared before the show. Can we just have the... Okay, perfect, we've got that. Do you accept advertising in social media? 1, yes, 2, no, 3, only if it's well targeted. Come on, vote now. Great. So let them vote. We'll have the results probably in 2 or 3 minutes. But until then, I have time to answer you some questions. To ask you some questions, actually. Answer would be wrong, right?
You don't need us, do you?
No, sorry. So it's up to you now. So I'm just asking questions now. Good. Unruly as a social video sharing platform. Obviously, you told me before when we had kind of a briefing session that you're also doing Lowalytics. I've never heard Lowalytics before, but you're teaching that at the University of Cambridge. Can you explain to us what that is and how does that help with social media?
It's of course, can everyone hear me? No, I'm not sure this microphone's... that's better. There we go. I've got a long chin. That's the problem. Okay. It's of course in Lowalytics, memes and mashup culture. And it's all about why ideas spread, the kind of ideas that get people engaged, and in particular how important it is for governments to let people share pictures of cats. Because as long as people can share pictures of cats in your country, the vast majority of the population will be content. As soon as you stop them from sharing pictures of cats, well, hell will break loose.
Okay, so you're the man of the check-ins here from Foursquare. Did you check how many people checked in?
Yeah, when I came in this morning, I think there were 550 people or so checked in. I don't know how that kind of changed over time, but it's pretty good for us.
Is that a good quote for an event?
I think for Germany, it's actually pretty good.
It's not a German event. Can I just mention that?
Oh, sorry.
Say that again.
For a European event, it's okay.
Okay, that's getting much better now. We're getting there. Okay, before you said social media companies have the ability to connect users with the things, merchant business around them and vice versa. So, but the secret sauce is something nobody has ever found. How to make money out of social media. Have you found a solution?
Well, first of all, I think people are making money with social media, clearly, right? I mean, there's very large public companies even here in this round. Yes, I mean, we think that we have found a way to do this, and we've been monetizing for over a year. When I was saying to you that it's all about contextual awareness, what we as Foursquare are obviously focusing on is people's personal location. And that personal location is not really available when you're on your laptop and on the web, it's not as relevant. But when you're out on your mobile phone, it's absolutely critical. And so from our perspective, we can give this personal location and a personal history of location back to the advertiser and help them target. So we absolutely are making money with this.
Perfect, sounds good. Now LinkedIn, the funny thing is I got actually a job offer this morning from an airline via LinkedIn. I've never received one. I got one this morning. I found it quite interesting. Probably they know that I'm not available at the moment.
What was the job?
The job was actually for an airline. Become the managing director for Germany for an airline, which is quite good. So it shows that it's actually working. But this is obviously not the solution that you're using for brands kind of monetizing your platform, obviously. Yeah. So what is the main kind of revenue driver for you guys?
Well, so LinkedIn is the largest professional network in the world. We have 238 million users, adding about 3 members a second around the world, and 65% of those are outside the US. So we, unlike many other companies, our business model is primarily about selling our products to businesses for access to the network and to make the network more valuable. So there's a recruiting set of products that we're primarily known for. We also have a marketing set of solutions that we can talk about that are advertising. And we have a new product set for salespeople who can use LinkedIn to connect with potential customers.
Good. Marcus, from your perspective, picture sharing platform, obviously there are a lot out there at the moment, to be fairly honest. And Flickr was the one I was growing up with. Nowadays, I can imagine that there are some other platforms out there giving you kind of a hard time. But how is Flickr kind of surviving in this challenging and competitive market?
Yeah, we are actually doing really well. We had major releases in December and May. We re-energized the product a lot with new offerings. In terms of advertising and brands, I think Flickr allows you to tap into a creative community, which comes with, I think, very specific rules and an understanding that you need to have. But you get more out of a creative community than just, for example, likes or banner clicks. You actually get people to eventually even create content for you.
Good. From a social business point of view, IBM is doing obviously quite a lot at the moment, and you have a lot of clients which we all know and probably everybody's heard of before. Now, you've done a study last year for CMOs, basically, and trying to find out what drives social media, how far is the world, let's say Europe. It was a Europe-based study, wasn't it?
Global study, but
Was it global study?
But third of it was in Europe.
So what was the main finding? Obviously, one of the main topics was social media.
Yeah.
What was the main finding?
Yeah, so we spoke with 1,700 CMOs around the world, 19 industries, 60 countries, and as I said, about a third of those CMOs were from Europe. The findings were actually quite interesting. If it's a one-word summary, the CMOs are feeling stretched. Here, if it's a two-word summary, they're also excited. Because what's happening is, from the discussion with CMOs, technology and marketing are emerging. And there was really four things that we found out. One was big data and analytics is having a profound impact on marketing. Every aspect of marketing can be made more intelligent by more smartly leveraging big data. The second one was actually social media here. Many of the CMOs feel uncomfortable because maybe they're from a slightly older generation in terms of how to leverage it. But in a B2C environment, which many companies are in, and even in B2B, this is an important area. The third area was devices. The proliferation of devices is causing masses of data. And how do you handle that? And then the fourth is the demographic. As I mentioned, I have 3 teenage children. You know, all of them are very different in terms of their usage and I. So very significant implications of the study.
I can imagine how engaged your children are. I know that myself. I have 2 boys. I know how it is. Can we just have from backstage the results of our first question? So we see what came up. Okay. So basically, we have more than half of the audience saying only if it's well targeted they accept advertising social media. Is that surprising for you guys? Sarah?
No, I think it's kind of really sensible. Advertising can be great if it's well targeted. And we would also argue with social as an opportunity not just to be targeted, but to really create content that your audience wants to watch. So the big win in social is creating emotionally engaging content that they want to watch and then share themselves. You've got a much better chance of achieving that if you target the advertising well in the first place.
I very often get that question. Do you want
Yeah,
to?
I think, I mean, also if you read the data, it's actually 86% that are interested in advertising within social media, which is pretty incredible.
Well, you can,
Yeah.
it's kind of with studies, you always kind of flexibility of how to read it. Okay, but there's still some that are not accepting it, obviously, and it's not meant to be like this, because usually you can use status updates on Flickr, on LinkedIn. So, but is that really what kind of the clients are using predominantly, or are they really looking kind of the advertising campaigns, the recruitment campaigns, etc.? Right.
Well, let me just say, I mean, I think the best advertising is advertising that is highly relevant to the user. It almost doesn't look like advertising, and that's what built, a huge company called Google, figuring that out and making incredibly relevant advertising. What's happening in social media is not that different from what happened in search and what happened in display. It's just now a format of a feed, and it's essentially a kind of content that can be promoted. So Facebook, Twitter, us, other companies, all the social networks are following that pattern. And if it isn't targeted and it isn't member first, then people won't click on it, and the social networks don't make money.
So Martin, as we work with the clients, the theme we give to them is, marketing should move from being intrusive to feel like a service. So when it's customized, driven by data analytics in terms of what offer you give them, what message you give them, it should feel like a service. And I think that will drive the acceptance here.
Kind of these customized advertisements or customized branding issues, that's what actually you were doing in Foursquare.
That's right. I think Brian is correct. There's a lot of advertisement in social media in the feed itself, but what we are now doing is something we call a post-check-in ad, where a company like Diageo, we just did something recently, they are able to reach a customer exactly at the point where they think they are, the ad is actually most relevant. And I'll give you an example. Captain Morgan is a spiced rum that they sell, and all of a sudden, if you have a Foursquare user checking in at a bar, and maybe they're waiting in line to make an order, as a post-check-in ad, after they've checked in, they actually get a little recipe for a cool Captain Morgan drink. That's obviously highly targeted right there and then. The customer can make a choice and say, like, you know what, I was going to order a margarita, but maybe I'm going to go with this rum drink, right? And I think this is the first time that social media, not just Foursquare, but a lot of us are actually enabling to reach a customer at that point of decision making.
Which is actually quite good, which is a new opportunity we have via these mobile devices, which was quite new years ago. But what we've seen on Twitter and different other platforms at the moment, Facebook and so on, they're all working with their sponsored updates. Are we expecting sponsored updates on your platform as well, on LinkedIn soon?
Well, so this is not breaking news now, but we actually launched a product called Sponsored Updates on LinkedIn. It started as an organic way that companies could post content, individuals could post content into LinkedIn. We've added a lot of original content to LinkedIn. Now what they can do is promote their stories with a sponsored update. It's performing extremely well. And we also have customers in Germany. We've got them all over the world now using it on a self-serve basis and also sold through our field sales force. So we are following in their footsteps to some extent, but in the LinkedIn case, it's more about B2B marketing and a more focused, targeted audience.
Now, obviously, in terms of real-time branding, it's quite challenging because we are all trying to get the users engaged and everybody's working on it. And I'm asking myself sometimes, is the day going to get 36 hours in the future, or how shall we manage that? I mean, we are losing, obviously, the traction in the back end. How can you enforce that on a platform like Flickr, for example?
So I think you have to deeply engage with the user. You don't have to think as a marketer. You have to think as a user. Only if you create value and engage with people, they will actually act on it. One of the most successful stories that we have in terms of brand marketing are from companies like Purina or Starbucks, or also like very camera-centric advertisers that have almost dedicated community staff for, not the short term to just kick something off, but to be very transparent with users, to engage with them regularly. And then people are going to go the extra mile and actually take photos for you, share them under the name of your brand.
So that's...
Yeah, I think the title of this panel is actually somewhat of a challenging concept. Real-time branding. Real-time and branding don't necessarily go together. If you're going to do real-time branding, you have to know who you are, because the time that it's going to matter is when the lights go out at the Super Bowl, and you have to come up with something clever, and you have to have that team ready to go. So I think branding usually involves a very long-term process of changing perception. Real-time is the opposite.
But is that basically what you're praying in terms of social business from IBM?
Yes, so we're pretty excited by social business, and we think it's going to have a profound impact on what marketeers do. Again, three things. One is, we think with social, you move from segments and demographics to individuals, marketing to the individual. The second thing is, you can't be random acts of marketing. You need a system of engagement. So we're working with some of our clients, both large and small, on how do you deliver the client experience. Because the client will only come back if they get the experience that they expect. So that's the second point. The third point is about the brand, both in social environment, is if your brand says you're going to deliver this experience, but the reality on social is over here, that's a big freaking issue here. Am I allowed to say that or no? So it's a big issue. It's a big issue between if your brand promise is here and what you're actually delivering in social is over here. So part of the thinking from IBM is in your system of engagement, you have to deliver that brand experience that you're promising. If you don't, the clients are not going to come back.
I think that's absolutely true. And if you want to deliver any value for the brand, for the business long term, that has to be the case. Otherwise, you end up with a bunch of kind of very short-term, momentary snaps that mean very little to the business. And that's a kind of total misuse of social media.
It also, I think, needs continuous investment and ongoing. Like, you don't want to die off in campaign, because the content is still out there in the internet, and if it's being died off, it actually reflects bad on your brand.
But isn't this kind of wishful, sorry if I interrupt that over here, but isn't this kind of a wishful thinking? We are all working kind of in Excel sheets, and we are all working in verticals, and we are all working in budget lines, and we have kind of a quarter of a planning, and then we're moving on, and people on. So how can you really live this social business approach in terms of how can you be sustainable in your real-time branding approach?
Well, I think it takes education, and from our side, from Yahoo and from Flickr, we help people to be successful in their community. So it's a learning curve for a lot of folks to do. I think, and it's probably true also for others on the panel, we help customers also with custom branded experiences, which try to engage people long term.
Knowing your brand values and what you're made of and what kind of a business you are is really helpful, because it helps people to decision make in real time on the fly.
But if I just come back to your question about budget, yes, of course, there's a finite budget for every advertiser, but I think ultimately the advertiser has to make a choice like where, which channels do their users use, their customers, and then number two, like from my perspective, we are very much performance-based advertising provider, and you basically put your money where you get the best performance, and so I think it ultimately will play itself out.
Yeah, Martin, based on discussions with and engagements with sort of hundreds of clients, what we find is, to really deliver this system of engagement, you have to have the right infrastructure. And part of the infrastructure and part of delivering a customized service here and really recognizing the individual is building the data around the 360 view of the individual and the client. Once you build that 360 view and you have the right infrastructure, based upon real-time data coming in, you have analytics running to deliver the right value, deliver the right offer, customized to what the client really cares about here.
Well, the basis, to be fairly honest, the basis, and I'm doing a lot of webinars and seminars on social media, and I'm seeing what's happening out there. And the truth is, out there, nobody really does social media monitoring, nobody really does analytics, measurement is, some way of doing this. And there's someone somewhere there, but you won't see him, yeah? But this is is that kind of the experience you also get at LinkedIn? That are not really kind of following up from a strategic point of view and living this social media branding?
Well, let me say, look, we're probably in the 10th year of social media growth. And it's not like this is necessarily a new problem. The difference now is that you have tremendous measurement capabilities available if you want to use them. I think actually the first problem a lot of marketers, because I am a marketer and I market for LinkedIn in addition to selling to marketers, but the first problem is organizational alignment. Not when you have different product groups spread around the world, they may go off and do campaigns that have nothing to do with your core brand. So you really have to first know what your brand is if you're going to even expect to do it real time around the world with different groups. Secondly, you do have to give people the tools. You don't necessarily have to have the same tools all around the world, but you have to have some center of excellence that says these are the tools that we expect to use. IBM's a great vendor of those kind of things. There's a lot of great companies to do that. You can build your own, which is what we've done at LinkedIn. And then the third thing is you do have to have, I believe, a set of people who are dedicated to social media if you're in a marketing team. It's hard to make this stuff a part-time job of somebody else who's also doing email and doing web, building websites. And so the dedication, the technology, and the sort of organizational alignment are critical.
Sarah, from a personal branding point of view, obviously everybody out there, because you mentioned organizational alignment, which is a bit of a challenge. If everybody goes out, starts blogging, starts going on Twitter, starts doing their Facebook stuff, do you see any development there that really people understand how to align people inside an organization?
I think there is a move towards this, and agile marketing is something that captures both elements of real-time branding. I think the idea of agile marketing is about going fast and rapid response and bringing in the social loop. But the other aspect of agile marketing is collaboration. And agile marketing comes out of it from software. It's taken from software as agile development, and the key to agile development is collaboration. So I think we're going to see a lot more collaborative tools being developed to help everyone use the technology, because there's some great technology coming up. We we provide real-time data to clients so they can see trending content for their demographic, for their geo right now, and they use it, and they use it well to talk to their followers, to provide relevant content, but it doesn't always get spread around to the right people. So it's about creating the collaborative tools as well so that technology is enabled further.
But is there kind of a big learning curve for companies if you're bringing in more tools? Obviously, everybody feels kind of overwhelmed by all the technology coming in and learning tools again. Is that kind of stepping back in terms of the evolution step that you want to move on and basically you have to go back again?
I think just to share two examples. One is a client, BBVA. They're an IBM client. You asked, are people really doing this social monitoring? They're like 150 years old. They have 90 million clients. And what their clients think of the brand is really important. So, we actually work with them to implement a real-time social monitoring tool to be able to track the brand. So it is happening, and we're working actually with a lot of clients. The second example I would give is the IBM example. IBM's 400,000 people, and we just deployed IBM Connections to 400,000 people. So we're trying to get the internal social media energy going. And yes, we're finding that you've got to have the right infrastructure to be able to really deliver that, and it does drive significant productivity.
Okay.
So I don't want to lose this point on agile.
Yeah.
So I don't know if everybody in the audience knows agile, but it's a pretty standard now process in software development. It's increasingly being adopted by marketing teams because it sets a time-bound element of what you're doing, and you have to iterate very fast and know what your results are.
Yeah. Can we, because we have another question, backstage, can we have the second question, and you please take your remote controls again. We have one more question. What kind of brand messages do you react to in social media? That's what we want to know from you guys. So please take your remote controls. And the answers are one, is it one? Yeah, one. One is banners, 2 sponsored status updates, 3 sponsored stories, 4 branded accounts, 5 none. Okay, vote now, and we see the results in probably 2 minutes, which is good. So if you're looking into the future, I think we know all the challenges, organizational and this kind of an evolution that goes on. Do you see companies in kind of 2 or 3 years' time being more clever in using social media, more clever in getting everybody behind the philosophy and the culture of social media, right?
Well, I was reacting a little bit to what's on the board. I'm going to answer your question in a second, but the part of the reason for the change in the format of social media and the engagement on social media is the mobile device. We're finding that and you can see this in Facebook's data also, Twitter certainly, the growth on engagement with ads on social media is driven, majority is driven by mobile engagement, mainly because you've got a small screen and you have these feed-based updates that you can react to. On a desktop, there's banners around it, there's a lot of other distraction. So the engagement rate tends to be much higher on mobile. And that's also driving now, to your question, the type of social media advertising that advertisers are using.
I think the sophistication level is actually very varied, right? There's a huge discrepancy. There's companies like Starbucks or Diageo who are really at the forefront, who've been doing it probably for years on a lot of our platforms. And there are others that are still dabbling in it. They're not 100% sure if it's going to make sense to them and so forth. And so from my perspective, I personally think, we're doing something very specific and actually probably even newer than what Facebook will be doing with like sponsored status updates and stuff like that. So I think it's just going to take probably for us another 3 or 4 years of education until we reach a point where maybe 90% of the companies actually know what to do with these ad products.
Good. Can we have the results, please? So that we see what you have voted here. Great. Okay. The votes actually presented by Optimizely. I don't want to miss that point, otherwise I'm losing 1 point here. Okay, so the results, none, 27%. The biggest one is sponsored stories. That's what people like. Probably storytelling is the big thing. Sarah, from your point of view, because you know that the storytelling is very often a video-ish
Absolutely.
topic.
Video tells story in a way that no other medium can. It's so powerful. So I'm not surprised to see sponsored stories. For me, though, I think it's less about format and it's more about content. And great content is great content, and the best advertisers are creating content that people want to watch, want to share, want to become part of that brand story.
Are companies really becoming media companies now? Are brands really becoming media companies? We know Red Bull, we know Coca-Cola, we know these stories, Schwarzkopf maybe. So, but are there other examples that you can mention at Flickr?
I wouldn't say that companies are becoming media companies, but I think you as a company, you target more the individual user and you engage with them. It's not about like just a set of users. You target individual people and you try to get them attached to your brand and interact with the user. So I agree with Sarah. It's all about the content. It's less about the advertising around it. But companies like us can definitely help advertisers to educate them.
So in our launch of sponsored updates, new promoted feed-based advertising, we had both publishers like The Economist and The Wall Street Journal, and also advertisers like IBM and a company called HubSpot, which is a startup in the US. There were a lot of cases where the content from the business advertiser was getting much higher click-through rates than the content from the publisher. So I do believe that there's this merging of worlds where publishers have to become better marketers and marketers have to become better publishers. And if the line gets too blurry, then you don't know what's promoted. But it's clearly promoted, but at the same time, the businesses have to get very good at creating content.
Shouldn't companies invest in journalists today?
Well, they are.
Well, some are, not many, as far as I can see globally.
We're just at the start of the trend though, the whole kind of content marketing kind of evolution is just beginning. And I think we're going to see more and more journalists, talented copywriters, talented videographers coming in to work with brands and help tell their stories. I think this is why crowdsourced content is becoming such a big thing. That it's difficult to find enough people and enough talent, so you go to the people and they can help make content.
That's actually a very good point. Usually I would say also like there's going to be a lot more growth in kind of editorial teams in these brand companies. But for example, on the Foursquare side, we have 30 million user-generated tips. And in many cases, major merchants, shops and so forth, they actually rather take a user's kind of statement and use that to kind of highlight one of the aspects of their shop, then actually create some sort of fancy marketing message because it's kind of much more relatable. And so I totally agree with what you were just saying.
Marketing I think is having a profound impact on the people within the marketing team and who we hire. I'm finding I'm shifting from traditional marketing skills to analytics skills, to writing skills, to content skills. So, to the audience, I mean, evolving your own skills to align with where social is driving us is a big deal. And I think analytics skills, social skills, writing skills are critical here.
And the bar's getting higher all the time, right? Because it's so cluttered. And because we're all trying to learn to create better content and put it out there and get it shared.
Exactly.
So it's just going to continue getting higher.
It is.
I think our time is kind of moving on, as far as I can see, and I get signs from the back. So basically, let's sum this a bit up. In 140, and this is a challenge for you guys, as you need to be managing this. In 140 characters, tell us what companies should invest in terms of real-time branding next year.
Invest in skills.
That was a great tweet. Fantastic. Invest in skills.
Think as a user, don't think as a marketer.
Companies should invest in an Ocean's 11 team of content, analytics, and support for their products.
Good.
Keep trying, keep testing, because otherwise you can't learn.
Good. And don't be afraid to fail.
Perfect. That was very brief. That was your social media panel, ladies and gentlemen. Give them a hand. I think they've done a good job. Thank you very much.